So I've put these together, these negative and positives, on one page, good and evil, to point you to recognize the way in which this good and evil framing has led to extremes in this debate and extremists in this debate. The extremists on the left of my chart, at least here, increasingly think that the internet teaches us that we need to radically remake society. They look at the copyright debate and they celebrate the fact that copyright is under pressure because of the internet. There's an increasing copyright abolitionist movement out there that believes we should just eliminate copyright. We don't need it anymore. There is no reason for this restriction on freedom to survive. In the context of journalism, they say that blogs will be enough. We don't need major investigative reporting anymore. Amateurs can do everything that we need. And in the context of the transparency movement, they look at stories like the growing cynicism and they say it's the just dessert to a corrupt system of government. But there's extremism on the right as well. The battle on copyright leads people increasingly to suggest changes that would effectively kill the internet. The death of journalism leads people even more self-righteously to lead to changes that would kill the internet. And those who are embarrassed by the transparency facts that the internet produces increasingly, and in a Red China way, say, kill the internet. The point is, these extremists from both sides refuse to acknowledge the other side. They see this as a grand either-or, that we either have the unlimited anarchy that the internet in some sense pushes to, or we have the totalitarian state that those who would resist the internet support. That is a mistake. We need to find a way to pursue both. We need to find a way to believe in the net, but also believe in copyright and journalism and trust in government. And the question is not which of these to have, the internet or copyright, the internet or journalism, the internet or trust. The question is, how do we get both? We need to accept the internet is here and not going away. We need to celebrate the internet is here and not going away. But we need to think about how we minimize the harm that this great good gives us. How? Well, there are obvious answers that have been out there for the last 10 years in the context of copyright. To give up the sense that the sole objective of copyright is to give a copyright owner control over how work gets used, and to focus instead on ways to assure compensation for the work being used, compensation for the harm caused by peer-to-peer file sharing. So this is an idea at the center of the book by my colleague Terry Fisher. It's an idea behind the Green Party in Germany's movement for what they call a cultural flat rate that would raise the funds necessary to compensate artists for the harm that they've suffered because of peer-to-peer file sharing. Or in the context of journalism, my friend and colleague Robert McChesney in this powerful book argues that again we need to recognize the need for public support for public goods, and investigative journalism is a public good. So whether through foundations like ProPublica or the government through things like National Public Radio, we need to find ways to complement what the market is providing, as historically in the United States we always have. And finally, in the context of transparency, or what we could call trust, we need to remove the cause of mistrust. We need to change private funding of public elections into public funding of public elections. Small dollar funded elections that would make it impossible for people to believe, or reasonably to believe, that any particular decision was made because of the money. To make it impossible for them to believe, as the vast majority believe, that money buys results. The point is, in all three cases, we accept and we celebrate the internet, but we find ways to accommodate and minimize the harm that the internet pushes. Yet today, in activists and governments across the world, no one is yet pursuing this balanced set of responses. Instead, across the world, extremism in this debate rules. So, for example, in the context of copyright, in the United States, we wage a war Actually, we wage many wars. So the copyright war is the particular one I want to speak of. A war which my friend, the late Jack Valenti, former head of the Motion Picture Association of America, used to refer to as his own, quote, terrorist war, where apparently the terrorists in this war are our children. Or in the context of journalism, public funding for journalism has been cut in the United States, believing that the private market can provide all that there is, or in the context of trust. Even though the cost of campaigns in the United States has skyrocketed, and members of our Congress spend up to 30 to 70% of their time raising money to get reelected to Congress, the Supreme Court of the United States just this year struck down any constitutional basis for Congress to limit corporate spending to support a candidate. Corporations have an unlimited right to spend as much money as they want, independent of a campaign, to support or oppose any candidate, only exacerbating the current perception that money buys results. We live in this age of extremes. Everywhere we are extremists.